What up, everybody? This is Pac-Man 1987, and I'm back again today with some Kerbal Space Program. I know there's at least a few people have mentioned they've been waiting for this, so figured today was the day. And today I am going to work on my Apollo recreation because we got all these spiffy new parts as part of the Making History expansion, and I've done an Apollo recreation before, but now I can make it way cooler, I think, so we're going to try that. So this is going to involve kind of redoing my original design with these new parts to make it look cooler, hopefully make it work a little smoother. But we'll see how that goes. Let's see. So I've got my original one here. This is where we're going to start. I made this like last year, as soon as I find it. Where are you at? There you are. I made this like last year in the spring, so it's you know, it's a little older. Still fantastic. And what we're gonna do is we are gonna copy these values here because I know this vehicle works. So if we copy the engineering of it, we know that it will work. Let's take a look here. Let me just check something too off screen here because I feel like Stream is doing something strange. So okay, good. Things are working properly. So let's start here. I need this information, and the way I'm going to get it is with the Microsoft snipping tool because it's actually pretty useful. So you won't be able to see this part, but I am grabbing a little screenshot real quick so that I know what this should look like when it's done. We're just gonna hide that off screen somewhere, maybe up on this screen. So if we look at it, just starting out, so what was this thing? Well, this was an engineering replica, so it doesn't look exactly like it, but you can say that this is stage 1 with these rockets down here, stage 2 is this, and stage 3 is this. So if we look, it's stage 13 is those initial rockets, and it has a 1.21 thrust to weight ratio. That's actually higher than the real vehicle. It was a little bit lower than that. I think it was like a 1.18. Very low thrust to weight ratio. That's why when you watch a video of the Apollo Saturn V rocket taking off, you know, it's like really, really slow, just barely getting up there for a little while. And that's not slow motion, that's actually it taking off. It lifted very gently off the pad. Because it weighed a lot. And that stage has about 1,600, a little over 1,600 meters per second. Stage 2 has about 1,900, so that's not bad. Stage 9, that one? No, stage 9 is actually a bunch of little rockets. Stage 8 is the next stage. Okay, so that all looks pretty good. And then we're just gonna have to go from there. The very first thing though that I'm going to build is going to be the lander. So let's look at the lander. We're gonna pull the lander out of the whole thing, or rather pull the whole thing off the lander. So we have a lander. I don't think I'm gonna worry about the science package coming along this time. Let's just look at it as a stock vehicle. So we've got about 1,088 meters per second of delta V in the first stage, 923 in the second stage. Very low thrust to weight ratios, even on the moon. They're not that great. They're 1.7 and 1.9. So it doesn't have the most thrust in the universe. That's what we want to recreate. And again, we're going to need snipping tool picture of it. Grab that, because I'm going to need these for reference. And then the other bit that we need to pay attention to is the command and service module. Again, we're going to pull that apart. Okay, that already was the root part, so that works perfectly. Probably help if I didn't take the engine with me, though. Oh, come on. We're going to get rid of the launch escape tower also. So, what do we have? Pretty standard vehicle, not too much to it. Decent thrust to weight ratio. I'm going to double check that that's actually what it should be. I don't remember if I overpowered that or not. I don't think I did. I think it actually did have that. But these are all things that we can tweak later on if need be. The important bits are just getting the baseline down. So, let's take a peek. That looks good. Pull up my information over here on my other screen real quick so I can copy it. And like I said, we are starting with the lander. Okay. So, let's start a new vehicle. Make it bigger, faster, stronger. They gave us this awesome landing vehicle in this version. Oh man, this thing is so cool. We're waiting for this for a long time. It is meant to replicate the lunar module of the Apollo program. And it's pretty solid. They definitely designed it to be close to the real thing. It comes with its own monopropellant. It has a decent electric charge available to it. Has enough liquid fuel and oxidizer to return. Stick an engine on it. I know it is meant to take the spark engine. So, let's see. Now there's a trick to this. So there's two nodes on this thing. I think I mentioned this in a previous video. One of them is, you can see like right now this would just be floating out in space. One of them sticks it actually where it's supposed to go, but you can't just click and put it there. You actually have to click here and hold and drag until it gets there and let it go. And I found that that trick lets you place it. Otherwise it just kind of drops it off, not on the vehicle, which isn't very useful at all. So, what did that get us? It's just a hair shy delta V wise of what I've had before. I don't really want to change anything on it because, and this should still be more than enough. Actually, I'll take that back. This is the ascent stage. It has more delta V than it needs. I got by last time with my original vehicle with only 923. That's pretty solid. How much did that weigh? And that was heavier. This is much lighter. So this is going to go really well. And we can turn that thrust to weight ratio way down. You can see it's 5.64 here. And I know that the correct one is 1.94 because I did the math on the original vehicle. So it's easy to adjust. You just right click here and thrust limit. You can actually do this mid-flight too. I've been known to use that as well. That's close enough. 1.95. I can knock delta V off of this, or I could leave it alone. It's so lightweight I probably don't need to worry about it. It gives me a little extra margin of error because the original stage weighed, what was that? actually don't know what it weighed. Well, let's see what we can accomplish with the next stage down. So we're going to need a separator. Let's take a peek here. That's the right size. This one also needs a little love to get it where you need it. Okay, you gotta kind of line it up right in order to attach it properly. But there we go. So it makes a nice little fairing on the bottom, so it lines up perfectly. Now I need a fuel tank. And the fuel tank for this one, I believe, is supposed to be this, which doesn't seem to be working quite right. So let's see. I think something's wrong with the placement on this. There we go. Yes? No? Maybe so? Doesn't quite line up perfectly, does it? It's weird. Don't know if that's correct or not. Wonder if it's supposed to be a stack separator. I think that's how that works, actually. That's interesting. I mean, if it works, it works. Let's see what else we've got fuel-wise. I'm still not 100% that that is the part, but I think it is. Well, it's definitely not that one. Now the only sad bit here is we don't really have an analog for the descent engine. I am going to use that other separator. For some reason they didn't add one. I don't know why. Kind of makes me sad. Missed opportunity. Although, really, if you want to get technical, the standard Terrier is a pretty decent analog for it. It's just a little too big. I don't know that we're gonna get... Okay, yeah, that would give us more than enough, actually. Wow, that thing has... it has some juice. A solid engine. Go figure. It doesn't look the part, but it plays the part pretty well. This thing is just too powerful for it. Let's see though. Where's some lander gear? We need like a landing leg, landing strut. I mean, that looks really cool. Kind of digging it. I know that engine is way too strong for what we're doing with it, but I kind of like it. We do need one other little part here, though. This one uses a Clampatron Junior, I believe. That's a 1035. That's a little shy of what we had before, but if we're getting down to that close to the wire, I think we're in trouble. There was a decent margin of error built into that 1000 meters per second value. I usually make landers with more than that, like 1200, 1300, just for safety purposes. But this thing should be capable of landing. Let's change the color. That's a little better. That looks kind of cool. It's not quite perfect, but... Or if there's a different tank that works better. It doesn't look that way. I'm like having to relearn the tanks because they changed them so drastically. Yeah, that'd be the one. So, I mean, this is pretty much a functional landing vehicle right now. That should be able to land on the moon. We can increase the delta V just a hair by dumping delta V from the second stage. Because again, it was able to do what it needed to do with 923 meters per second of delta V. That's 915. That should be enough. Emphasis on the should. We will see. I'm interested to know how much delta V does it have for the purposes of monopropellant. 136 meters per second. That's significant. You can do a lot of work in lunar orbit with that much. So, pretty good. I'd say this is a lander. At least for the time being. We'll need to do some testing. But that was the easy part. This is the easy peasy vehicle. We do need to adjust thrust to weight ratio on the second stage again. Go with 1.93. It's closer to what it should be. This one, for the sake of good looks, using a really big engine it doesn't need. It's just so cool though. Let me see something. I wonder. I don't know what I think of that. A little too big. It looks cool. Not working for me. What else do we got? That's too big. We're not. No, just no. We got all these cool new engines though. Perhaps one of them will work. Yeah, just throw one of those on there. Kerbals just like to make all their rocket motors way too big. Or if I could, we'll have to do a engine test. This looks more appropriate. I don't know if it will work safely or not, because that is about the right scale. We're gonna do a test just to see if that blows it up or not. Let's stick a Kerbal in there, because what could go wrong? What? You can change. Oh, you can change your costumes. That's cool. Let's do a launch test. We're just gonna fire this engine for a little bit, make sure it doesn't blow itself up. Looks pretty solid. Might be able to do shorter landing legs like that. But you can see that there's not a whole lot of thrust involved with this. Okay. That wasn't bad. What? A crash! Kerbal crashed. I actually had a crash to desktop, guys. Well, let's go ahead and relaunch that. This latest version of Kerbal is a little finicky. A little finicky. Probably because of all the new stuff they added. But that's okay. Something over on my other screen here. I had all my thrust to weight ratios all goofy. Weird. Okay. Get back to it. So where were we? I believe we were doing some testing. Namely testing here. Oh, I forgot to turn the thrust to weight ratio down. That was probably why I was kind of a little concerned there with how short of a time that burned for. But that was why, because I was wasting way too much fuel. There we go, that's spot on. Looks really good. I wonder, would it look better? No. Well, I'm not gonna lie. Honestly, a little closer to the real scale of the thing. I just don't know how well those are gonna do holding it up once it hits the ground. Not bad. You can go out on the launch pad and hack gravity and take a peek. Kind of in between the real thing. Height-wise, that's actually how tall it should be. It was pretty squat. Definitely not the tallest sitting of vehicles. Width-wise, it's a little off, but you know, that's Kerbal stock parts. That does a pretty good job. I mean, that's holding it up pretty admirably, even under Kerbin's gravity. So I would assume on the moon it's going to handle it just fine. I think it's just because this thing is so lightweight by comparison to my old lander. So let's do a fire test again real quick. Let's just take a peek at the stats. That looks about right. I'm not seeing any kind of heat issues from having this tucked in here, so I would say this is a well-designed landing vehicle. Not bad. Probably once I have all this done, before I do the whole grand run through, I'll probably need to send one of these to the moon to test. So I'm gonna go ahead and... Interesting. I think I am actually going to have to send that crash report to squad, because that's the second time that happened with the same instance. I'm gonna fire it back up though. Have to work around it for now. No reversions. Doesn't seem to like revert to vehicle assembly building at the moment. Could also be some mod I'm using. Hard to say. I'll have to nail it down later. Do a little testing. Terrifying blast awesomeness. That's great. I like that. Okay. Where were we? There it is. Okay, that looks pretty good. We could put lights on it. I don't really think I need to waste the mass. This is a pretty sufficient vehicle. Let's name it. We're gonna call it the Mooner Excursion Module. It's the MIM. So. Save that. We're also going to go ahead and make it a subassembly, which I'm hopeful it's going to let me do. So we're going to need that later. That's pretty good. Not bad. Not bad at all. Somehow my thrust away got a little screwy though. Lower that ever so slightly. That's about as close as it's gonna get. Okay. Not sure why that changed. But I'll take it. Well, that is a much more efficient vehicle than before. In any event. Let's start with the command and service module. That's really the next step. And I love this new command and service module they gave us. The command pod is awesome. Like, look at that. It now has functional RCS, so it can control itself. Which I think is pretty freaking cool. Same battery monoprop values. I'm gonna leave the monoprop off by default so it doesn't waste the monoprop in the pod. So let me pull up the one for the command and service module over here on my other screen. And luckily I can just copy the work I've already done. If I can find it. There it is. So we need about 1,089 meters per second of delta V with a 2.43 thrust to weight ratio on the moon. Or around the moon, near the moon. Whichever you prefer. So, let's see what we can do about that. We need heat shield. That's too small. That's too small. That's the right one. We need... Well, we're going to have to do something inventive. I think I did something inventive last time with this. What did I do? Because we need a Clampotron Junior. Not a normal one. I think I used a fairing or something. Yeah, that's what I did. I did that. Very inventive, I know. I wonder though, can I do something really wacky? Let's try some things. What would this look like? Maybe add payload fairing. That's I don't like that. That looks dumb. I was thinking for a second maybe we could what are you? What? What? What are you? Ooh. I like this. That looks really cool. What is that for? With explodes, I think you can stash parachutes in here. Maybe this is the part I was missing the last time, and I was like, I wish I could find that again. Let's see. Let's look at the parachutes. Surface. What are these ones? Those are about the same. One of these is the normal. That's the drogue chute one. Why would it be so big though? That's just silly. This is very interesting. But I think you'd have to do radials. This is a weird part. Those are too big. These are kind of too small. That is odd. Let's try something. Can we get something that we can attach those to? Because what's the point of this thing otherwise, unless it's just a little tiny service module for some little tiny vehicle? I feel like it's here to stick parachutes in. Now let's see, that thing's too big. What else could we do with that? I wonder if we could do something silly. Like, how clippy can these be? Probably help if I flipped them the right way. That is weird. Oop. That sound means I need to check something. Yeah, this game is awesome. I've gotten a lot of fun out of this game. With, I think somewhere in the range 800 to 900 hours playtime. Definitely a solid purchase in my book. What's happening here? How weird that is. Those not lining up? They aren't. How can I line these up? You know what? Let me check that for you. I want to say $30. The Kerbal Space Program itself right now, oh, it's 40 right now. So the game itself is 40 on Steam, and I think just anywhere in general you get it. And then some of the parts that I'm using right now are from the latest expansion, which is the Making History expansion, which is $15. But you don't really need that right away to get started. It just adds some nifty parts and some mission stuff. In fact, I think the parts might be in the game without it, but don't quote me on that. I haven't figured that out yet. It's definitely worth every penny. Let's see. Like, can I like do something like that? This is so derpy. I don't know what to think about it. Let me try that. I just don't feel like those were lining up very well. Such a weird thing. Well, that's a decent start. That's centered. I'm just interested to see if these will even deploy. I have a feeling it's going to yell at me and tell me that they can't. Pretty cool if they did, though. I'm as high up in here as possible. Just stick this on a pad real quick. I want to fire off these parachutes and see what they tell me. See, it considers it stowed. That's interesting. What good is that part then? That's my question. That is an intriguing part. While stowed. Well, we know that if we revert, crashes the game. We're gonna go to the tracking station and recover it. Not deterred. I think we can get this to work. Oh, goofy now. Where did that even go? Down here. Very interesting. I wonder if we did... Maybe like a truss. Stick a truss in there and then attach them to that. Maybe it would think it's good to go. Good work. See if we can trick the game into doing what we want. Where did it go? I'm like having a hard time finding everything anymore. Like maybe the octagonal strut. How about that? Oop. Give me 1 second, everybody. I need to check something on my other screen because I'm trying to win something for my stream. Here we go. Yes! Ha! Oh man, that's awesome. That is awesome. Alright, stream. I'm happy right now. I just won something really neat on eBay that's going to be fun for my future streams. It's a motorcycle controller from Thrustmaster that hasn't been made for years, and I just got it. So it's going to take probably 2 or 3 weeks to get here, but once it does, when I'm playing Ride 2, I'll be able to use a sweet motorcycle controller. So that's pretty exciting. Awesome. Okay, so back to what we were doing. Now I'm in a good mood. I'm happy now. This is good stuff. Let's see if we can force this game to do what we want it to do. So let's put 2 of these in here, and then let's do this. Do that. Now, why am I doing this? This looks stupid. Because we can just do this. Thanks to the miracle of part clipping, I'm going to tuck this down in here. That looks pretty good. And then we're going to try to attach parachutes to this. Now, I don't know if this is going to work. In fact, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this out here first, and then I'm going to attach the parachutes to it. The game may still consider them stowed. Or it might not. It's hard to say. Actually, what I want a third one, because I want this to be true hollow style. I know it probably doesn't need 3. That doesn't mean I don't want 3. Oop, that was one too many over there. Kind of odd placement. Maybe we can refine that a bit. Oh, good grief, I'm not hitting buttons. Not doing a good job of hitting buttons tonight. Okay, so what we have here is rogue shoots, some real shoots. Things are looking great. We're gonna tuck this in. Gonna see what we get out of it. How's that look? Looking good. Kind of gonna like angle these. That looks good. See if it likes it now. Cross your fingers. Darn it. Still considers them stowed. Come on, game. Work with me here. That's very intriguing. I guess it detects that they're clipping. Find that rather silly. Oh well, for the moment we'll just have to do it the old-fashioned way. It's kind of a bummer. I'm gonna try one other thing though. I will not be dissuaded. What if... Two things we can actually try with this. Oh, see, it's going to be silly now. There we go. We rotate it. I need what I need is a part scaling mod is what I need. Suppose I should go download one. I don't like to use them though, because then eventually they stop working right with an update and all your vehicles break. It's just not fun. See, it's not going to work though no matter how I scale or rotate or change these, because this one it considers stowed too, which I find very, very interesting. A fairly useless part. Oh well. That being said, how much did that weigh? 0.075 tons versus 0.05. So this is lighter. So this is what we'll use here, because we do need something to adapt to the scale of a Clampetron Junior. Help if I click things right. And what we'll do, it won't be like amazingly pretty like that would have been, but what can you do? We'll stick our parachutes up here. Fringe benefit is that we can now do a triple parachute setup, even though we don't really need it. Just be cool. And then we'll do... Actually gonna rotate that around. That here. That looks good. And then we'll do one here for the drogue. Very cool. That covers our parachute problem. And our docking port problem. We may want to lower these just a hair, so they're not getting in the way of that. You know what, I do want to rotate that around. I don't want those blocking the window. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay. Now, let's work on the service module. Also, how much... That has a lot of delta V. Granted, it doesn't really need it all. But, what can you do? Let's see. Not that one. Not that one. I think I'm going to use a stack separator too. That would be the right one. There we go. So now we want fuel, monopropellant, batteries, fun things like that. They did add something pretty nifty, which is, where is it? See, I wish this was bigger, because this would be the perfect size. They added a service module. It's pretty cool. But it is way too long. This is not the right scale. And I don't think there's any way to shorten it. Neither is this one, really. This one doesn't quite work. Yeah, there's no way to make that smaller either. So we're just going to do a traditional build on this, which will be not that fuel tank. Not that fuel tank. They changed all my colors. I don't know what's what anymore. That would be pretty good. Now, one tricky bit is that the command pod and the service module on the real vehicle are almost the same length. The service module is a hair longer. This is looking pretty good with the extra length here. Maybe needs to be a bit longer, but let's see how much fuel we have before we start making changes. Now there is a new engine, which I need to locate. That is this one. Yes. No. What? Something. That is more or less supposed to be the command and service propulsion system. Being said, I wish it was a little bit different. I feel like, here it is. This is the one I want. There's our command and service propulsion system. That is literally the engine off the bottom of an Apollo spacecraft. They made it look exact. I really like it. It's cool. However, its thrust to weight ratio is crazy. This thing has so much thrust. You could use this for all kinds of stuff. We need to lower that. In wind mode, it's supposed to be 2.43. quite the reduction in thrust. There we go. Now how much delta V does that have? We have way too much delta V right now. This only needs 1,000. But we are going to slap some other parts on here, so we need to do that before we start reducing our fuel, or we're going to find quickly that we don't have enough everything else. So let's take a peek at it and see what we can do. We need, what do we need? We need some batteries, because I don't think the 150 in the command pod are going to cut it. Well, they will, until they don't. We could do a fuel cell, like the real vehicle, which is what I'll probably do. I think I did that on my last recreation. But the most important thing we need right now is we need some monopropellant. So let's see, where's our center of mass right now? That's a pretty good spot for it, actually. That's about right on target for the real thing, so I'm liking it. If we reduce this mass, it doesn't get too crazy. Let's add some monoprop. There is our fuel tanks. Check something here too real quick. Cool. So we need monoprop. Monoprop comes in several sizes now. They actually added a minified monoprop tank, which that's pretty cool. That's going to come in handy for a lot of things, but we don't really need that. What we need, and we may want to add that to some of that to the lunar lander later on. We'll see. This thing, I don't think it's going to need that much. How much is in there? 20 a pop. That's 50. We don't need 50. We don't need 100. Things don't have to do that much maneuvering. I think 2 of these ought to be sufficient. And what we'll do, we're going to stick them on there for now, and then what we'll do is we will rotate them into the vehicle. And then we'll do some part clipping to hide them. Actually, I think I'm just going to flip them back the other way and we'll clip them through later. So, yeah, that looks pretty good. The 150 battery on this should be more than sufficient for what we need to do, especially because we're not going to use reaction wheels. We'll have no torque, all RCS, all the time. I'm going to double check my original vehicle to see how many units of RCS fuel I brought along. But you don't need a lot. What we will need, something to generate power. I think we're going to achieve it with a fuel cell. The question becomes, do we want a fuel cell or fuel cell array? And I think just a fuel cell ought to be sufficient. We might do 2 of them just for balance purposes, or we might not. Now, okay, so we look at this. I just had everything inside. Now you're like, well, what the heck? How are you going to get that now? You have to tweak things. Well, I have a secret weapon. I have a, you can't see it right now. This is a 3D Connexion 3D mouse. It's really for 3D modeling. But when I'm playing Kerbal, it allows you to fly the camera around freely. And it actually allows you to clip the camera through things, so I can still access these devices if I need to tweak stuff. That solves that problem. Now we need to tweak the amount of fuel we're carrying. Oh, there's one other thing. One other fun little detail. We don't need it. No reason for it. But we're going to have it here so it looks cool. We need one of these guys. Not 4 of them, just 1. There we go. We'll put it on this side. Because the real vehicle had something like that. So we're going to put it on there too, just for fun, so it looks neat. In fact, how much does that weigh? 0.07 tons. How much does that thing weigh? Hey, I have an idea. Hey, I already used my idea efficiently. Okay. We only need one of these, really. We're going to put this on the opposite side. That should more or less balance the vehicle out now. Alright, so let's tweak our delta V value. And then we'll need to tweak our thrust weight a bit. And I think we'll be good to go as far as the setup on the command and service module. No, we don't want an orange. That'd be silly. Yeah, that looks cool. We need some RCS. Now I have a useful mod here for RCS. It's called RCS Build Aid. And if you turn it on, you see what it says. So, it gives us a diagram. It shows you your center of mass. It also shows you your dry center of mass. So when you're out of fuel, what's your center of mass? The other thing that it shows you is how much delta V your RCS will give you. Now we need to tweak some things. So for example, these, we don't want any kind of linear inputs from these. In fact, we're going to turn all of those off at the get-go. And then we'll make a reaction or an action group to turn them on when needed at the end of the mission. We're going to disable the RCS on that entirely. So right now, all we have is a diagram showing us where our center of mass is. So we throw RCS on it. Now you notice there, I was only putting one on, so it was showing that when I did a burn to change my orientation, it was showing how much the torque generated by that off-center axis of thrust is going to goof up my craft. So doing anything like that, my craft is going to like start to rotate this way and that way, and it's not gonna, you're trying to move, it's not gonna work right. So you need to balance it. So this mod helps you do that. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to make 4 of them, because that's how many you should have. And now you'll notice, so we've got a circle. Oh, it's causing me problems. Because, if you look, my center of mass, well, I'm pointing at my screen like an idiot, and you can't see this, but if you look, my center of mass is over here. But my thrust axis is way down here. So it's going to rotate the vehicle as well as trying to move it, which we don't want. So what we do is we move it until both that red arrow indicating off-center axis thrust and the circle representing torque go away. And that's a well-balanced RCS array. And you can see there's a value for torque up here. We want that as low as possible. Now there is another factor to this that matters. This matters for an efficient docking maneuver. When we first detach and we want to attach this to the lunar module. And we can see, if we go in, our report, that, and that, we can change it to rotation. How's it going to do? Well, that time it shows us torque, which is what we want. We want torque. So that's working as intended. That looks really good at the moment. We're going to need to make a tweak to it because we need to lower the amount of fuel we're carrying by quite a bit. That's actually more than I need, but it's going to have to do because we don't want to go under what I need. Now if we look at RCS build aid, well, my center of mass changed. This is actually better for it because the center of mass got closer to the dry center of mass because there's so little fuel in it now. So we could probably make that even better, but we're not going to worry about it too much. We're going to switch it to translation mode. We're going to switch it to one of the directional translations. That's about as close to perfect as it's going to get. That's a really well balanced RCS system, and ironically enough, it's set on the thing almost exactly where the real vehicle would have had it, so that's pretty cool. Now there's something that I want to check though. So if we look, there's two things we want to check. Everything is on there, so that's good. What we want to see is this. I added that Mooner module to subassemblies earlier, and there was a reason for that. So we're going to stick one on top here now. So here we are. And this is why I may want to actually add more fuel, to tell you the truth. Because both of these vehicles are going to be using it. If we look, we're not going to do any translation maneuvers with it in a dock configuration, but we want to make sure that it's not generating undue torque otherwise. It's a little off. It's not terrible. Could be worse. Not bad. I would say that that vehicle is probably going to maneuver fairly decently. The only tricky bit is we don't have a lot of delta V for changing our direction. So we probably do need to give it more monoprop. Which that actually works in our favor because again we have more fuel mass than we really need for this mission. Get rid of that. I'm going to do two 150s. I think the original vehicle had that. Clearly we have the payload capacity for it. Where are you at? And I want to kind of try to keep it the same if I can. Not really throw it off. There we go. Now let's check, did that throw everything off or not? That gives us a good, respectable 102 meters per second of speed change we can accomplish with RCS, which should be more than sufficient if we're careful. And that's shared between both vehicles. That looks pretty good. It's actually pretty darn close to perfect. See something here real quick. That doesn't impact it much either because it's sharing monoprop. Which we're going to turn this monoprop off by default, so we'll have to turn it back on so that if we check the fuel flow, let's stick this up on a rig and make sure it can still fire in this configuration set up like this. Should be able to. Where are we at? Throw some struts on there to hold it together. That should be more than sufficient, I would think. Okay. Let's launch one of these. Alright, so we're up on a testing rig. And what we want to see is, does the RCS still fire? And is that still off? Excellent. That is still off. It is only consuming the RCS fuel from the main vehicle, which is exactly what I want it to do. Very cool. Not bad there. Let's head back to the Space Center. Testing wise, that looks great. We'll probably do a on-orbit test where we stay in Kerbal orbit, just send everything up there and test the vehicles out a bit, which is what they did in real life. So I would say that this command and service module, unless I'm really forgetting something, is good to go, with one little exception. But it's something that we're going to add in the next step. I also want to add this as a subassembly as well, because we'll need it possibly in the future. Okay. Let's go to new real quick, and then we're going to load that. So now we want to design the rest of the vehicle. Well, this is going to be the interesting part, is designing the launcher. This is where it gets a little complicated. Pull up my data over here. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this launcher. Let's go back and look at my original Saturn V replica. Kind of break down what it does. This is the original one. And it has a couple of things going on. The first stage is actually these outboards, because again, it wasn't an exact visual replica, it was just meant to replicate the engineering. So these outboard fuel tanks and motors are the first stage. Switch back to Kerbal mode. There we go. The actual first stage of the rocket, though, is them firing for a few seconds, and I did that just to simulate the initial takeoff where it fires up the engines and then it lifts. And then the launch towers pull away. Now, once you're up there, you'll notice this ridiculousness over here is actually an array of separatrons that are separating these. I'm not going to need that anymore, because we're only going to need a few of those, because this is all going to be an inline stack now, just like the real thing. Then the second stage starts right about here, I think. No. This is the second stage. That took over. And then when we got to the point where it separated and the third stage was taking over, you get this, where the third stage uses separatrons to pull apart as well. So we're basically going to replicate that. Now then, I did use reaction wheels on the launch vehicle, just to make it a little easier to maneuver, because once you're in orbit it's impossible to really control these goofy things, and it's just easier to have a reaction wheel there. So that was one place where I cheated. It also had a remote guidance unit, so I could control it after removing the rest of the vehicle, and you'll see why later on. And then I used a Clampetron docking port to separate this, and then you'll notice at the bottom of that stack is a protective shell, which does the shell around the vehicle. So we're going to reproduce that. There's also a launch abort tower up here. We're going to make that too, but it's going to be way cooler this time, and I'll show you how. when we get to that part as well. Let's go ahead and open the CSM, because that's the base core part of the vehicle. We're going to kind of build down. However, first part we're going to do is build up. And what I'm going to do with it is this. I want a payload fairing. We're going to put it here. It looks ridiculous, but trust me. We're also going to make it upside down. Again, you may be like, what the heck are you doing, man? I'm doing this. So the real Saturn V rocket had a protective fairing over the command pod. And so when they were launching, like if you've ever seen like games that reproduce that, and you can look out the windows, that's not actually what the astronauts would have seen. They would have seen the inside of the fairing for a lot of the launch. And there were two reasons for that. One, it was an aerodynamic feature. It protected the front of the craft and it made the vehicle more aerodynamic and easily controlled. The second part is when the launch escape tower fired, to pull it away from the vehicle, it actually popped off. And that shield was there to protect the command pod from the rocket exhaust from the rocket motors on the launch escape tower. Because again, the launch escape tower actually had a little rocket motor. We're duplicating that. Got that there. Then we need our launch escape tower, which was right here. We're going to slap that on top. And there you go. That's one launch-ready command and service module with launch escape tower. Now, how does that work? Well, we go to our abort stage. We set up an abort action group. And the abort action group fires this. Where is that at? We want... I'm going to do some staging real quick. Okay, we'll do that next. We are going to set that to activate the launch escape tower. So that is the abort mode where it pulls the craft away. It has to do one other thing though. You have to fire the separator. So if I hit the abort button during launch, it'll pop the pod off. Well, later on we're going to add shutting all the engines down to that. But we won't do that just yet. Now I'm going to make custom group number 1 be jettisoning the launch escape tower. And we're gonna set it to clamshell deploy. We do want the fairing staged. That looks great. Put that all the way at the top of the stack because we're never going to fire it manually anyway. Okay. So action group 1 is also going to activate the engine. But then it's going to go in here and decouple this node which that's attached to. It's Apollo 11 because it's Kerbal, so everything has to start with a K. You can help it. Now let's test this out. We're gonna put this bad boy up on a rig. We're gonna see if it works. Oh, I didn't actually set this up properly for this though, but that's okay. Yeah, sure I did. So let's test abort mode. So I should be able to hit abort. Oh, I missed one thing. We need to jettison the tower. And look at that. That's a successful pad abort. that would get the crew safe from the vehicle in the event of an emergency, which that actually can be useful in Kerbal because sometimes these rockets don't work and you need to get your crew away from it. They don't explode. So again, we're not gonna immediately recover or revert. We're gonna go back to the Space Center and be safe about it. We're gonna recover everything here. Now I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna put it back on the rig and we're gonna test the other mode. Or the game will crash, that could happen too. You know, what's a good crash between friends? I definitely need to submit some bug reports. What is that, number 3? Is that 3? We've got 3 now. 3 crashes. Goodness gracious. I'm on a roll tonight. Breaking everything. I mean, I did call my channel Crash to Desktop on YouTube, so I guess I gotta live up to my name. Bear's doing crazy stuff. Swimming on lathe. Goodness gracious. At least the game loads really fast now. I'm liking that. It's a little quicker than it was before. It's snapping along. Okay, so back to what we were doing. We're still doing some important tests. So, where were we? Here's the new Apollo 11. Throw it back up on a rig. We're going to test the abort ejection. So, partway through the launch, when we no longer need the abort system, we have to jettison it. Gotta get rid of it. So, all I have to do that is hit the 1 key and this should work. Look at that. It did. Thing of beauty. Oh man, I'm actually really happy with that. So the last time I built an Apollo 11 recreation, I couldn't do that. The fairing system didn't work that way, and it wouldn't let me do that backwards fairing like that. So it just always irked me that I couldn't make it look right. So I'm pretty happy here. Let's hit recover vessel and cross our fingers that it doesn't crash. Hey, it worked. So, let's start building a launch vehicle. You know, there's just one thing I did not check. Did not fix my thrust to weight. Thing I thought of it. 2.43 is what I'm targeting. Not too far off. That'll do. Build our fairing again. There we go. Double check our action groups. They're staging again because it decided to be all wacky once more. There we go. Cool. Let's build the next stage down. Now this is where it gets tricky. So the next stage down Nice! How'd it go? Did you test it yet? Always fun to build an Apollo. Grab my subassembly here. Wow, that is so much smaller this time. That's awesome. Did you land on the moon with it yet, or still working on it? I want a shroud. There we go. Cool. Why are my legs extended? Hey, that's the start, man. That's gonna be. I'm actually probably gonna do that first too. Is just launch one of these up, get it into orbit, and do a test. Make sure it works. Maybe I'll even do. There was a Saturn V block. I forget what block number it was, but there was the one before the full version. Nice. This one is. This is the second one I've done. And it's actually, it's an engineering replica of the real vehicle. So I actually did a bunch of research and ended up matching things like how much fuel, how much delta V to orbit each stage gives it, matched the thrust to weight ratios on everything. And then I try to do all the maneuvers as close as possible. And I've done that before about a year ago. There's actually a video saved on YouTube and Twitch of me doing it, which was a lot of fun. Since we got all these neat new parts, I decided it was time to do it again. See if I can get it even closer. Let's see. We need to jettison this. Good, it's maintaining my thrust settings. I'd probably do like one of those. Maybe one of those. No shroud. Let's do... What else do I want to put in here? This is usually where I hide all the control parts. Let's do that. We'll have one of those. Hopefully we'll have one of these. You know, that's the one thing I haven't done yet. I need to get that mod pack that lets you build those. Maybe I'll do that after I do the Apollo stuff. I think it's time for me to play around with some Falcon 9 things. There we go. Then I want the payload. I think. Is it going to be that wide or is it going to be that wide? It's going to be that wide. Check something on a picture though I have. Make sure I get this detail right. Let's see something real quick. I gotta remember what size this is gonna be. Yeah, it's cool. You know, the Apollo method of getting to the moon is actually really efficient. If you want to get really lightweight stuff to the moon without having to build some kind of gargantuan lander, which is why they went with that method, of course. Where is this? How big is that? That's really big. So that's how big the whole vehicle is going to be. Except that no, it won't. Where's the next tank size down from that? That's the main tank. That? Is that gonna be my stage 3? I feel like it should be smaller than that. I'm gonna decide on the size of my staging. Nope, okay. What size are you? Yeah, I guess that's gonna be it. Okay. Because the next size down doesn't really do me much good. Oh, just a little closer. Let me place you cross section. There we go. That's pretty good. Close enough. Not quite how the real thing went, but it'll have to do. Doesn't seem to want to let me do it the real way. Sure is finicky when it comes to placing fairings. Alright. I wish they had added a pedal deploy. That would have made me happy. Let's see. We're gonna auto strut. Well, we're not gonna auto straight yet. That looks good though. I'd say that's a successful payload. Let's round it off with the third stage complete. Which would be that one there, I think. How's my staging look at the moment? How many parts? I only need 4 sides. Ooh, nice. That's always fun. Are you going to do the propulsive landing version of it? Always liked that. I was kind of bummed when they said they weren't going to do that anymore. Staging is looking good. Nice. What is the title on that mod anyway? Quite that long. What was it? First stage. Ones, J2s, J2s. Okay. Thought so. Well, that is not big enough at all, is it? Huh. is this one for? High vacuum efficiency. All these fun new engines. Pretty decent vehicle. ISP in a vacuum is good. Compared to this. Oof, that has a lot of thrust. Goodness gracious. Go to Kerbal mode here. That's actually close to what I need, thrust-wise, but not quite. This is going to be way too much. Fortunately. Does look good though. How about this guy? That could work. Wish this had, well, actually, I don't need anywhere close to that amount of delta V, so this probably will work. 135. Well, it's going to be overfueled a bit this time. 5.8. That's a thing of beauty right there. Looks really good. Okay. Now we need to do stage 2. It's about the same length. Maybe a hair longer. Let's try it. But it's got a bigger thing on it, so we're gonna need a separator and an adapter. Not that adapter. Not that adapter. These engines are actually part of the new expansion. They added a whole bunch of new ones, which I'm still kind of figuring out what all they're supposed to be for and what they do. But some of them I think are supposed to replicate things from the Saturn V rocket, and some of them I think are supposed to be like Soviet stuff from like the Soyuz missions. I do have a few modded parts, like some structural stuff, but I don't use a lot. Hey, there we go, that's what I'm looking for. Alright, so we need a separator. Actually, let me see too, because I feel like I'm gonna look at some reference stuff over here. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely the part. I think I'm gonna have to build a fairing for that though. By the looks of it. It's the latest expansion. It just came out. It's actually it is the first one they've made that's actually a separate purchase. It's $15 on Steam. feel like I don't want that like that. Yeah, we're gonna do this way. Where is it? How do I want to do this? I have an annoying engine. Remember, they have decouplers built in. That's interesting. How does that work? These are new too. They've added engine plates where you can do cluster engines, which is kind of cool. But I'm not 100% on how they function yet. Seem to have built-in decouplers. I wonder if it's something like this. Ooh, yeah, look at that. There we go. And then we do this little guy here. That's kind of cool. That's a little too long. With it being shorter. Can we shorten that? Ooh, we can. Ooh, we really can. Needs to be a little longer. These are cool parts. Oh man, I like that. So these engine plates, you put them on the bottom of your whatever stage you're doing, and then you can attach one or more engines to them, and then they build their own shroud, so you don't have like goofy tiny shrouds. That, man, that's a cool thing. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's, man, that is a nice upgrade. This should be stage 2. I feel like it's worth it. They also added a whole bunch of mission stuff, which is really cool so far. And they even, like you can do like historical missions or goofy Kerbal missions. And they're like a separate scenario that you run. So it says, you know, these are your objectives, figure out how to do them. And then you can actually build your own, which I haven't even touched yet because I looked at it one time and I was like, my gosh, that's complicated. And I kind of turned around and walked away slowly for the time being. Where was that? There it was. Nope, wrong one. There we go. Alright, so we have an engine plate. Yeah, oh, look at that. It's a 5 cluster. That's so cool. That is so cool. Loving it. So let's see. We need 5 J2s, so we're going to use that same engine for consistency. And then with these new engines that they added, you can also skin them. So like if I do this, I put all 5 on here. Well, I put 4 on for now. Well, that looks dumb, but I can click them and hit Shroud Disabled, and it won't do anything because it doesn't work right. As I talk about how cool this is. Come on. Oh, I'm still hitting the fuel plate. That's why. Oh, that's the right one. Okay. It's down here. So look at that. you have an option. There are variants in some of these parts now. And you hit this, so here's the normal one, and it's got this big goofy thing here, so that gets in our way. That looks terrible. But if we click it, and we hit bear, it gets rid of the shroud, and it stuffs them in there properly, and suddenly you have a nice 5 cluster, just like a real vehicle. That's too cool. And then we can make a shroud. For these, it probably only needs to be medium. And let's put a Sepratron on there and see how that looks. Wrong one. Now the tricky bit here is you have to hit the right node. There's actually like a little node in here that you have to hit. But it seems to want to be really finicky about. Make it longer. If we stick the node down here, now I can attach that. I get a fairing. Oh, that's way too long. So then I click back up here, and I shorten it until it's the length I want it to be. And that looks good. So there's my inner stage. I may even want to shorten that. Fortunately, that's not going to work there. Now I could do a trick to make this fit better. I don't feel like it needs to be that tall. That's a little too tall up there. So let's try this. We're going to have to test it too, because this acts like it actually has a decoupler built in too. And I'm really interested in that. What I am going to do though is this. Where's it at? See that? It's not gonna let me get away with this. Thought I was gonna do a nifty trick. Fortunately, it didn't work. Do I have any other options for that though? Because I really don't want that extra cone there. It's making the vehicle end up too long. Get rid of the shroud. I mean, that works. That'll shorten it. Doesn't quite look like the real thing, but what can you do sometimes? Nah, I want that on there. That's what that's supposed to look like. That's literally the bottom of it. That actually looks like the bottom of it. They made that look like the bottom of a Stage 3 of the Saturn V. That's really cool. What other structural nifty goodies do we have? I wonder. We did some like tricky bit like this. See, that doesn't quite work for me. I think I can make it work. There's a different one of these that would work better. This is a modded part. bump that. Where are you? Ooh! I think that actually is supposed to be that interstage. Let me see. No, it's not. I don't know, I'm just finding out all kinds of neat new things here. This is fun. That might work. That's interesting. How does that end up all the way up there? That doesn't help us at all. That kind of works. I think the real one is supposed to be much shorter. It'll fit in here. Yeah. I'm gonna test staging, see if that'll actually pop out. Wrong thing. Interesting. Aha! Okay, this could work. I don't even know that I need this little structure here, now that I think about it. Yeah, okay. So that's too long. But what we can do is we can cheat a little bit. Bump it down just a hair. Build the fairing. Close the fairing. And voila! Now the trick here is that we don't actually blow that fairing, and now it just remains that conical interstage. Make it black and white. Kinda cool. Ha ha ha! Look at that. I like it. I'll have to test it, but Looking promising. I don't like that coloration though, that's kind of derpy. Let's leave it like that. Doesn't have to be super amazing. Okay, so we've got, I don't even think we need that Sepratron, because I believe this has Sepratrons. Let's make this long, and let's put the next stage on. Should be a long one, I think. I think the last stage is going to be a long one. Yeah, it should be... I don't know if it should be quite that long. Yeah, it should. Be about right. Although we want to make it short. So let's hide the shroud. Not that short. There we go. Shroud on. Lift the whole vehicle up ever so slightly. The base on. This is really beginning to look like a Saturn V. And then we need engines that are big enough to be this, and I think that is the Kodiak or the Kerbodyne Mastodon, I think. Or try it. Oh yes, we also need to check Stage 2's thrust. So here's Stage 2. Stage 2 only needs 1900 Delta V, so quite a bit underfueled. Too little. It's going to be overfueled quite a bit, but that's okay. Hopefully that won't screw everything up too much. And its thrust to weight needs to be 1.51, which it's really close to. In fact, I'm not 100% certain that we can really adjust it too much. .46. You have to play with the thrust until we get to the value we want. 92. There we go. That's exact. Looks great. Alright. Now we have this stage. Yeah, looks good. We're going to move this to the top of the staging stack because we never want to stage that. Things are looking good. I think they have built-in Sepratrons. I'm pretty sure these are supposed to be F1 engines by the looks of them in the scale. Oh yeah, that's how it was designed, right? Yeah, that's the Apollo. That's funny. That looks so good. Looks so good. Good grief. Oh man, that's cool. I'm really pleased with this so far. Very cool. And look at our... Where are you? And why is it not showing up? That seems odd. We'll have to play with that, figure out why that's not showing us everything. This is definitely appearing to be Saturn V rocket. Slap some aerodynamic stuff on it. Could just be fins. Doesn't need to be anything fancy. In fact, I don't even think they have control surfaces on the real ones. They were really just canards. That's pretty much it. Just there to be stable. I think we have ourselves a Saturn V. Now, it still needs some work, but that's beginning to look like the rocket I know and love. Oh man, yeah, this expansion is great. Alright, I think that's a good stopping point. We have the structure down. Work is still needed. We got to tweak values. We got to add things like separatrons to pull staging apart. But man, is that beginning to look like the real thing. I am really pleased with this expansion. The next episode that I do of Kerbal, we're going to do some final tweaking on this design. We'll have to dial everything in, set up some action groups, and then we'll have to start doing some testing. And we will do just that. We will launch these things, and we will do some orbital tests, make sure everything works properly. Then we'll do we'll do it Apollo style. We'll go do a flyby. I'll go do an orbit test, and then do a landing. We'll see. It's going to take a few episodes. It's going to take some work, but coming along nicely. Anyway, if you are still watching, I hope you've been enjoying. I've definitely been enjoying this. Really pleased with how this looks now. And, you know, look for me to do some more here in the not-so-distant future. Have a good one.